Hi team, so I think we can go and start the session. Let me share my screen. Yesterday we have seen that instance walkthrough. So we have completed that all the components that okay, what are the different components are available. So today we will look into the other components like what is the web services, right? Because in the OIC, right, when we do the data communication, right? So this is again very basic concept and like important concept which will be required as every day. So first we wanted to understand, right, what is this web service is, right? So a web service is a method of communication between two electronic devices over a network, right? It means like when two devices wants to communicate, right? What is the method of communication, right? So that is nothing but the web service. So in the OIC also, right, whatever the application we will create, right? So at the end, right, that will also become the web service only, right? So any one type of web services it will become, right? Because in that also we wanted to communicate, right? So that is what we have, right? So a web service is a software system that supports interoperable machine to machine interaction over a network, right? When two machines wants to interact with each other, right, over a network, right? So that is what a web service, right? It has an interface designed in a machine processable format, specifically web service description language or WSDL, right? So it has its own language, which is the WSDL, right? So that is a web service description language. Web service fulfills a specific task or a set of tasks, right? So now two things are there, right? First, right, it is a method of communication, right? Or two machines will interact with each other, right? So that is a one thing, right? Then what it will do, right, when they communicate, right? So they will fulfill one specific task or set of tasks, right? So for example, right, like the salary thing which we have seen, right? Example. So we wanted to pay the salary, right? So if we are calling that as a web service, right? Considered as a web service, right? So what it is doing, right? So that logic, right? It is doing the salary thing, right? So that is the one task, right? So it can do one task, it can do number of tasks, right? Based on the code, right? What we will do, right? So that is what we have. So earlier we used to write that Java and all those things like Python and all to develop the web services. But in that one, right, we need to write too much coding and like we have to write like again, right, it's kind of a heavy coding we have to do because we have to get all the data, then we have to do some actions, right? Then we have to do some other another action, right? But OIC comes in the picture and they make that whole solution, right, looks very easy, right? So that is what we have. So then web service, right? So there are two types of web services are there in the market, right? SOAP API and REST API. So what is this SOAP API and REST API, right? So SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol, and REST stands for Representational State Transfer, right? So this is the full form what we have for the SOAP and REST. Now it transports the data into the XML format. So when the data communicates, right, with the help of SOAP, right? So it will just use that XML format only. It won't use any other language, right? So in the REST API, right? The REST API specifically like popularly we will use JSON, but in case if you wanted to use other format, right, you can go and use that XML also. But in this one, right, it is strictly mentioned that okay, we can just use XML only. It is based on the URI because REST allows stateless model, right? REST does not force message format as XML or JSON, right? So it means like you can go and use anything in this one, right? But in this case, right, we just have to use XML only. Because it is XML based and relies on SOAP, right? It works with the WSDL or web service description language, right? Now we are using the XML, right? And in this one, right, we have to define that WSDL first. So web service description language, right? So in that one, right, we will define that all those things that okay, what will be the input, what will be the output, right? And what all logics it will do, right? So that will be decided based on this WSDL file. But in the case of REST API, right, we have different types of method: get, put, post, delete, right? So these are the methods. By using this one, right, we will use the REST API. So in the get, right, when we wanted to use, right, get, when we wanted to retrieve all the data, right, so that time, right, we can go and use the get method, right? When you wanted to insert some records, right, like entries in the anywhere, right, so that time we can go and use the post method. When we wanted to update something, right, existing records or all, right, so that time we can go and use the put method. And when we wanted to delete something, right? So that time, right, we will use a delete method, right? So that is the difference between two, right? So REST API works with these methods and SOAP API works with the visual file. So if we have the visual file, right, then only we can go and utilize the SOAP, right? Because in this one only, right, we will go and mention the things that, okay, which all we are using, right? So that is what we have here. Then it works with the HTTP, HTTPS, SMTP, right? And XMPP, right? So these are the protocols, right? The communication protocols what we have, right? So these are the all protocols, right? SOAP supports. So earlier we used to have the SOAP only, but then, right, because of its complexity, right, and because of its restrictions, right, this REST also came in the picture. So this works with the HTTP and HTTPS only, right? And if you see, right, this is a highly structured and type, right? In this one, right, everything is like predefined. You cannot go and modify things easily because in this one, right, everything will be based on this visual file. So once your visual file is done, right, so whatever is there in the visual file, right, that only it can do. But in the case of REST API, right, it is a less structured and less bulky data, right? It means in this one, right, the structure and all those things are very simple. If you wanted to modify, right, you can go and easily modify. But whereas on the SOAP, right, it is quite difficult to make the changes that easily, right? This is designed with large enterprise applications in the mind, right? So earlier, right, because of its protocols and all, right, SOAP will be used like in big enterprise applications. And this REST API, right, was designed with, with mobile devices in mind, right? Because in the mobile devices, right, we need the data faster, right? We need the simple things, right? So because of that one, right, it was designed. But nowadays, right, even the enterprises are also using the REST API because of its easiness, right? So that is the difference between the REST and SOAP. So now how we will decide like which we have to use and all. So this completely depends upon the customer, right? So what type of customer has the customer is having the existing requirement, right? So if they have the rest, right, we have to go and use the rest only. If they have the soap, right, we have to consume the soap only, right? So that depends completely upon them that okay, what method they have exposed, right? So that is the high level difference between the rest and soap, right? Both will do the same task, right? If you wanted to do it, like suppose the salary thing, right? With the example again, I will use the same example, right? So if you wanted to do the salary example, right, you can do with the help of REST also. You can do with the help of SOAP also, right? So there is no difference between them, right? Only the difference is like the implementation, right? So if the end user, right, or if the client say that okay, we just accept the SOAP methods only, right? So that time we have to create the SOAP only, right? If they will say that okay, no, we will accept the REST also, right? So we'll go with the REST first, right? So that is what we have in the here, right? Any questions into these web services? Okay, so if no questions, right, then what we'll do, right, we'll go and start creating our first integration.
Yeah, Prashant. So generally,
Yeah,
like
please.
when we are working on integration, right? So if we
All
have
right,
large data, like XML is used, then we do the chunking and we process the data, right?
all right.
Yeah. So now it is not required in OIC, so it can take any amount of data. We still need to do the
Yeah,
chunk.
no, it depends upon the file size.
Mhm.
So when you read the file, right, from FTP and all, right. So suppose if the file size is very big, right. So in the OIC, right, we have two things. One is like you can read the complete file and you can read the file in the segments also. So you
Mhm.
don't have to divide like in the OIC, right? We have the process itself. So that will do that one. But we just have to when we design, right, so that time we have to use that okay, which method we have to use. If it is a small file, right, we can read the complete file. But if it is a big file, right, so we can divide the whole file into the segments so that okay, it won't break or it won't impact the performance issue.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So now what we'll do, right, we'll come here and we'll start creating our first integration. So till now, right, we have seen that all the concepts and all, right. So what we will do now, right, we'll go and create that simple integration. So for the REST connection, right, whatever we have created yesterday, right, we will go and use that only. So yesterday we have created this one, right, trigger connection, invoke connection, right, and trigger invoke connection. Right? So we'll use this connection only. to start our integration. Let me come back here. Application. We can say B21 underscore. So the first one, right? Like we will do the hello world, right? I think we already did that also, but like let me do again because that time, right, we are completely new, right? So we don't know, right, what we have done. Today, right, first we will use a hello world and then, right, we will modify that into the dynamic thing so that, okay, how we can go and do the dynamic things, right? So we can say 01. Then, like we have created a version. Now what we'll do, right, we will go and create this into our package, right? So we have created that B21, right? So we'll go and put into that one. And now we can say create. If you see right here, this is the designer portal what we have, right? So once you come into this application, right? So if you see right, it is a completely blank, right? So when it is a app driven, right? So that time it will be completely blank. If suppose it was a schedule, right? What will happen, right? It will come as a schedule automatically here, right? The schedule will come, right? So that is what we have, right? Then the next is like what we have, right? Next is like event one, right? So event one also, right? The event will be the starting point. But in the app driven, right? The first one will be a blank, right? So when yesterday we are looking into that one, right? Connections, right? So for the app driven, right? We need the trigger connection to start, right? So we can click into this one. So if you see right in this one, right? Only trigger connections are showing. Invoke connections will not come, right? If I will say B21, right? So if you see right, what we are getting, right? We are getting the trigger connections only, right? We have created the invoke connection also, but that is not coming, right? And that will not come also, right? Because the starting point, right? Or the integration, right? Integration can be started with the OIC with the help of trigger connection only. So we need to define the trigger connection only the first one, right? So we can say trigger connection. And in this one, right, if you see, right, this is a completely window, right? So in this one, right, this is the screen which you are able to see, right? So this is what we call the designer portal. So whatever the flow chart or whatever the logic, right, we need to write, right? So that will come here only. And these things, right, will explain like once you modify, right? So these are that some options which can help will be required to us. So this will be kind of that collapse all collections. So if you wanted to collapse, right? So that one. So once we have, so that time we'll go and use, and this will be there for the full screen. So if you click into this one, right? So you will get some more space, right? The names and all those things, right, will go away. Then you can just come back again. So these names and all these things, right, will come. So let us create that first trigger connection. This is our trigger connection, right? So once we do this trigger connection, right, then what will happen, right? We have to configure this one, right? Now, if you see, right, when we created the connection, right, so that time, right, what we did, right, we just give the credentials only, right? That okay, which all credentials will be required. But what activity it will do, right? So that we have to define here, right? Because there we are not defining the activity, right? And why we are not defining the activity there, right? Because if we define the activity there, right, then tomorrow if we need to create one more REST trigger connection, right? So we need to create one more connection, right? And in that one we need to define, right? So due to that reason, right, only there the connection, right? That credentials part will be there, right? What activity it will do, that will go and put into the integration, right? So the first screen will come, right? The first screen is like the configuration screen, right? So here we just wanted to give the name that okay, what it is the name, right? So we can say that okay, endpoint, right? We can say start, right? Or you can give any name, whatever the name you wanted to put, right? You can put here. So we can write hello world, right? So any name you can go and put here, right? In the this one. Then if you wanted to put some description, right? So you can go and put the description. And this option, right, we'll see later when you wanted to create multiple on top of single, right? So that time this will be required. So this is like advanced topic. So we'll discuss later once we have the basic understanding of the implementation. Then we will click into the continue. So the first screen, right, will come the configuration, right? In that one, we have to define the basic informations that okay, what we will use, right? Then once we come into the next one, right? So it will go and default the option, right? This is the default option, right? Then here, right, again, this is optional, right? So how you know that okay, this is optional or this is mandatory, right? So wherever it is mandatory, right, you will get this required symbol. So if you see this is a mandatory, right? So it will come as a required, right? So this again here, right? You can give that optional, right? What this operation do. So if you wanted to provide, right, you can go and provide what activity it will do. Then here we need to give the endpoint URL, right? It means like what is the final point, right? Endpoint. So here we can say slash hello world. So this is going to be our custom URI, right? So when we will test, right? So that time, right, what will happen, right? How we can go and test it as it is a REST API, right? So one URL it will generate, right? So it will use that like host name, everything, right? Then it will use the integration name, and at the end, right, it will use this one. So whatever we will provide, right? So that will come at the end. So if you see, this is the endpoints relative resource URI, right? So that is what we can do provide here. Then this is a REST API, right? So in the REST API, right, as I told, right, we will have four or five methods, right? So all those methods it will come here. Which method, right? So previously in the previous step, right, we put the basic information. Now we are doing the resource configuration. It means what type of REST API it is, right? So we are giving the REST API endpoint, then what type of REST API. And based on this one, right, if you see, right, the below parameters will come. So if you see here, we have three things, right? Add and review parameters, configure a request payload, and configure the response, right? So these three we have. So these three, right, will vary based on this one. If you see, right, as of now we are using get, right? So the second option is disabled, right? If I will go and put this as a post, right? Now see, all three options got enabled, right? So based on this method, right, these activities will come. Now what is these activities, right? So first one is like add and review parameter, right? So if you wanted to put one or two parameters, right? So for that purpose, right, we can go and use this one, right? So if you wanted to add some parameters, right? So this can be used. When you wanted to send a request payload, right? If you want, it means like more information, right? You wanted to send, right? For example, complete JSON, right? Or when you wanted to insert the record, right? So that time, right, what will happen, right? Like suppose if the table is having 10 records or 50 records, right? All 50 records you wanted to send, right? So we cannot go and create the parameters for that one, right? So when you wanted to send bulk information as a payload, right? As an input, right? So that time, right, we will use this one, request payload. Don't confuse with the word payload. Payload is nothing but the input only, right? Whatever the input will have, right? So that is what we have. Same way, right? Whatever the output will come, right? So that we can go and define in this one, right? So what we'll do, right? We'll first we will go and start with the get method only. So in the get method, right? Request payload will not be there, right? So this get, post, put, and delete, right? You can consider with the database also. So get is nothing but the select operation you can consider. Then post is nothing but that insert statement, put is nothing but that update statement, and delete is the delete statement. So if you compare with that one, right, then you will get like uh, your basic understanding will be cleared, right? How? So if you use the get operation, right, it means select we are doing, right? So in the select only we can pass the parameter, right? We cannot pass the payload, right? But whereas when we use the insert statement, right? In the insert statement, right, we have to put all the columns, right? So that is not one parameter, right? It is a bulk information, right? So that is what we will have here, right? So we'll use the get method here. Then here we need to select. If suppose you don't select, right? And if you directly click into continue, right? It will come to the summary page, right? But if you select any option of this one, right? Then what will happen? The next screen will change. If you see, right? If I will say that, okay, I just need the response, right? And I will click into continue, right? So I will come to the configure response page, right? And suppose if I will say that, okay, I need the parameter also, right? Then what will happen, right? First request parameter page will come, and then right response page will come, right? So it means like based on our decisions, right? Based on our here selection, right? The next screen will come. If you wanted to put all, right, and these are not mandatory, these are completely up to your requirement, right? So for example, right, in this example, right, we just wanted to print hello world always, right? So we don't need the parameter, right? So I will not check this option, right? I will say that, okay, we just need that response, right? Or we just need the output from this one, correct? So we can say continue, right? So we did this one, right? Now what type of response it will be, right? So we can say it is in the JSON format. So here XML schema, we can give XML sample binary, right? So we can give anything right here, but we will use the JSON, right? Why? Because in today's world, right, almost all the companies are using the JSON format. Because of it's easy to read and easy to understand, right? So JSON will be used, right? But in case if your client is using something else, right? So we have that options also. We can go and use those, right? So here we'll use this one, right? Now we need to provide the sample also. What type of output it looks like, right? Because how our OIC will understand, right? That okay, this is that output it will look like, right? So we need to provide some sample file, or we can go and write here code. So if you see it, if you have the JSON file, right, we can drag and drop, right? Or we can go and enter that text here, right? So any option we can go and use. So when you have the file, you can drag and drop and you can go next. If you don't have, right, if you have to write our custom, right, so we can go and you click into this inline. So once we click into this inline, right, what will happen? One window will come. So here we can go and put the JSON code. So JSON will come in the curly brackets, and then right, it will have the key and value, right? So key we will have as a message, and then we'll have here like hello, right? So this is how like our output should look like, right? One key will have, and in that one, right, the message will come. That is what we will have, right? Now in this one right here, if suppose you put it wrong, right? So suppose I have not put this one, right? Single quotes. Now if I will click into continue, right? So it will go and check the validations here only. So it means like whatever the file I have done, right? So that is not a valid file. Once I will put back, right, curly braces, and I will click into continue, so it will go to the next. It means like if it is a file is a valid, right, it will go and create a successfully, right? If it is a not right, then what will happen, right? It will go and show the error in the top, right? And it will create that element as a response wrapper, so that all the output, right, will be bundled into this wrapper. So if you said here, only one we will, right? The response wrapper will be there here, right? So in this one, right, our output will look like. And the next is the media type, right? So whatever the file you have selected, right, based on that one, right, the media type will be selected. So we have used the JSON, right? So JSON is selected. If you use XML, it will be the XML, right? So that based on that one, right, it will come here. Now we can say continue. So now we have put all those things, right? So we came to the final page, right, which is a summary page. So in this one, right, you can go and see what all things we have done, right? So our URI is hello world, method we are using get, and we are not using the request parameters. And in the response, right, we have the JSON payload, right? So this is how we can go and configure, right? Now we can say finish. So once we do finish, right, what will happen, right? It will create two things. So let me do the finish. If you see right here, what it has created, one is trigger here it created, and one is a mapper it got created, right? So now if you see right, whenever you make any changes, right, here you will get the unsaved changes. So suppose whatever the logic we did now, right, and if that is not saved, right, what will happen? It will go and show as a unsaved changes, right? And until there is an error, right, it will come into the draft status. Let me go and save first. So if you see right, once I save, right, you see saved changes are done, right? It means now there is no unsaved changes, right? But still it is in the draft, right? Why it is in the draft? Because it is showing that okay, there is an error, right? And if you see right here in the red, right, it is showing error, right? So whenever you create any integration, right, by default one error will come, right? So that is what we have. Now how we can go and fix that error? So you can go and click into this error first, and you can say primary business identifier, right? So missing primary business identifier. So what it means, right? It means like when you create any integration, right? So suppose you created, now you executing, right? So suppose you are running this like 10 times, right? So now how we will identify, right, which you are calling when, right? And how you differentiate each other, right? Each flow from the previous flow, right? So for that reason, right, we have to make something unique. So this primary business identifier, right, we can consider it as a primary key also, right? Because if 10 times this code will run, right, how we will identify that, okay, which one was which, right? So for example, right, the salary thing, right? If it will pay the salary for each employee, right? Suppose we have 10 employees, right? And for 10 employees, right, we need to pay the salary, right? So if you are paying the salary for each employee, right? Correct? Then what will happen, right? Like suppose out of 10, right? For 8 it got processed, for 2 it is not processed. So how we will figure out like which are those two, right? So suppose if we have put employee ID as a business identifier, right? Then what will happen, right? Directly we'll go with that employee ID. That okay, for this person it is not working, and for this person it is not working, right? So we don't need to check for all, right? So that is how we can go and check, right? So for that one, right? So this is for the tracking purpose. If you see, missing primary business identifier for tracking. So when your flow will run multiple times, right? So that time, right, to understand, right, that better, right, or to understand it like correctly, right? So we need the something as a business identifier, right, or something as a primary key. So that what is we have, right? So we need to define that one first. In this case, right, it is a simple program, right? So we don't have anything, right? But we need to define. So we can come here. So there are two ways, right? One is like we can come through this one, and this is a business identifier page will come, right? Another is like we can just close this one, and this option which you are able to see, right? So this is a business identifier. So once you click into this one, right, it will open the same page, only business identifier, right? So both the things, it will bring the same place. So if you see right here, right, we can create up to 3 business identifiers. Business identifier, then second business identifier, and third business identifier, right? So this is like for the composite primary key, right? So when you want like only one value will not able to differentiate, right? So we can go and put two values. If two values will not able to differentiate, we can put up to 3, right? So this is what we have right here. So in this case, right, as we don't have, right, so what we'll do, right, whatever the method will be, right, so that only will go and define as a business identifier. And in this one, right, one is a mandatory, like only one we need to define at least. Rest second two, right, if you define that is okay, if you don't define that is also okay, right? So if you see, once we drag and drop that one into here, right, so tracking variable one is created with the method, right? So that is what it will do. Now suppose, right, we made some changes, again it is came into the unsaved changes. Now if I will say, right, so this error will also go, this unsaved changes will also go, and the status will also change. So I will say save. So if you see, right, all those things happen, right? From here, right, error is gone, unsaved changes are gone, and status, right, is changed to the configured, right? Now we know, right, when the status will be in the draft and when the status will be in the configured, right? So by just seeing this status as a draft, right, we can identify that, right, that okay, this is an error, right? In this one, right, there is some error or something is missing, right, which is not. But in the configured, right, it means like whatever the code it is, right, so that is a valid code it is having, right? So that is what we have here. Now if you see, right, these three things, right, so these two things are the orientations, right? So this is like, if you see as of now, right, it is coming top to bottom, right? But if you see here, this much space is empty, right? Suppose if you write bigger code, right, what we have to do, right, we have to like scroll down, right, this like this one. But what we do, right, we can do the orientation to horizontal. So it will come like this one, right? So in one screen, right, we can have the more space. So we can go and click into save. So now this orientation will change. This is a collapse and all. So if you see, right, as of now, right, it is not doing anything because here the collapse and all those things are not there. When you have the loop and all, right, when you have sub regions, right, so that time this will work. And this is the one, right, outline. If you click into this one, right, so the same flow, right, it will go and show that along with the diagram, right? In this one, if you see, it is just showing the diagram, right? But in this one, right, along with the diagram, right, it will go and show that else information also, right? That okay, trigger hello world using this one, right? The description also, it will go and show that okay, what all things it is doing, right? So we can go to the outline only. We can go and save again. Now what is the next one, right? We wanted to put that hello world, right? So now we have just defined the trigger part and mapper will come automatically, right? If you see, when we define this one, right, so trigger connection came, right, and the mapper, right? So this mapper will be there to see that output, because we have defined that output right here, that okay, output will come, right? So for that reason, right, it came here. So this is the only place, right, when we do the trigger, right, this mapper will come after, right? But when we use the invoke connection, right, this mapper will come in the beginning, right? So in the case of response, right, the mapper will come after, and in the case of invoke, right, this mapper will come in the beginning. Now, if you wanted to delete, right, you can go and delete this mapper, and you can recreate also, right? So one is like by default, whenever we create any connection, right, whenever we put any connections in the code, right, so mapper will come automatically. If you suppose something error happen or something, right, you can delete, you can recreate also from the scratch, right? So that is what we have. Now suppose if you wanted to put some more logic, right, so in this plus, in these lines, right, if you see, right, this plus buttons will be there, right? So at this specific place, right, you can go and put the plus button, and you can write the logic, right? And then it will have the return, right? So we have the response, right? So this is what we have is the return, right? It means from this one, right, we will return the output. If suppose we have not defined anything, right, then what will happen? It will come here stop, that okay, it will go and stop here, right? So that is what we have here, right? So now what we will do, right, we will go and put our mapper here, right? So we can either, you can click into this edit, and one more thing, if you see, right, if I will zoom in, right, so for zoom in, right, you can use two options. Either you can use this plus button, so this will zoom in, or you can just click here and just over mouse, right, you can just expand this one. So if you see, right, as of now, right, it is showing into the dotted, right? And when I am clicking into this one, right, it is saying map unconfigured, right? It is giving the name, it is giving the source connection name, and it is giving the target connection name, right? Right? Once we put the mapping, right, once we put the logic into this one, right, so these dotted lines will go away, right? So this is how we can identify in the code that okay, we have done the mapping or we have not done the mapping, right? So we can either you can click into this edit, or just double click into this one. So you will come inside the editor, mapping editor, right? So this is the source connection, and this is the target connection, right? So it means like what input will come and what output will needs to come, right? So here what we do, right, we know. So if you see, right, whatever the JSON we have defined, right, so that message will come. So that was coming into the response wrapper, right? Response wrapper, and inside that one, right, message it is coming, right? So we can come here, and now we can go and click into this one, right? So we need to create a target node, right? So we can say create target node, right? And now what we'll do, right, in this one, right, we will write the logic. So as of now, right, we need to hard code, right? Like just hello world we wanted to return, right? So we can say hello world, right? Now here, right, once we click into this save, right, then only the option will come. So we can say validate. So if you see, right, it got created. Now suppose if this is a wrong, right? Suppose this is, I missed single quotes, right? And if I will click into this save, right, it will come into the error, right? And here we will get that error, right? And when we do the validate also, right, so that time also we will get that error, right? It means like that whatever the logic we are doing, right, so the validation is happening at the here only, right? So if you see, right, once I will put this back, right, I will click into save, so there is no error now, right? Now I can go and click into validate, so message will come, confirmation, right, successfully validated. It means whatever logic we have written, right, so that is the correct logic what we have. So once it is validated, right, we can go back. Now if you see, right, it is not showing in the dotted colors now, right? And we can go and click into save. So now there is no unsaved changes. It is in the configured state, right? Now what we do, right, we can go and test it out this one, right? We can come back. Now we just have created the integration, right? But now when we need to test it out, right, what we need to do, right, we need to activate this one, right? So how we can go and activate, right? We have to come into this one, right? And once you click into this one, right, here two things will come, edit option and this option. So this is the activate word. If you do click into this one, right, what will happen? You can come back here, right? and you will, if you any code changes you wanted to make, right, you can go and make those code changes, right? If you wanted to test it out, right, so we need to go and activate this one, right? So we can go and click into this activate, right? This is the activation, right? So here we have this tracing levels. So this I will explain, but as of now, right, we'll just go with the debug mode and we'll say that okay, activate, right? So we can click into the activate. Okay. Now if you see, right, activation in progress. If you see, right, it is not activated yet, right? So we can go and refresh here. So now once it is activated, right, it will go and show the as the active. Now once it is in the active, right, we cannot go and make any code changes. If you see, the edit button is gone now. And if I will come inside this one, right, if you see view only, right, it means you cannot make any code changes. If you see here, plus button is also not coming, right? Why? Because it is in the view read only mode or view only mode now. If you wanted to make any code changes, right, we need to deactivate first. If you see, right, the active here, right, it was active button, right, now it is a deactivate button. So we don't want to make any active deactivate, right, as of now, because we wanted to test it out. So we can click into these actions and here, right, this run button will come, right? So we can go and click into this run, and then, right, what we do, right, we can go and create the this one, right? This is our testing window. If you see in the testing window, right, if you see when we created, right, the REST API was came, right? So if you see, right, up to here, right, it will be a generic IC integration cloud, then API integrations version 1 flow REST. So up to here, right, it will be same. Then based on your adapter, right, the next will come REST, right? Then your integration name will come. And in the integration name, right, it is not the name, it is the identifier, business ident, the identifier, right? When we create the name, right, the second identifier will be created. So that name it will come here. It, if you see our integration name was in the lower case, right? But this is in the upper case. The identifier it is coming. Then the next is a version it will come, right? Which version we are using. So this is that version, right? We are using. So the version will come, right? And then what will happen, right? The hello world, whatever the endpoint which we have given, right? Relative endpoint, right? So that it will come here, right? So that is what we have. Now in this one, if you see, right, in the request, right, we have not defined anything, right? So nothing will come here. And the output, right? The output will come here. So here the status will come, here the ID will come, and then the message, right? So the message will come here, right? The output message, right? And when we wanted to test it out, we can click into run. So we can say run. If you see, right, here in the response, right, status is 200, okay, right? Then ID, right? ID is this one, right? Instance ID, right? So this is, you can consider as a run ID also. So when you run, right, so each time, right, one ID will be created for the tracking purpose. So you can go and see that one. And in this one, right, the output will come message hello world, right? So that is what we will do. And when you run, right, so this is the activity stream it will come, right? So what is happening in your flow, right? So each and everything, right, it will go and show. So message received by trigger, message started, message received by data mapper, data mapping completed, message sent to the reply, and then reply from the output, right? So it means like whatever activity we are doing, right, it will go and show that okay, what all steps are happening. And for each, right, it will go and generate the some system generated logs and all. Now suppose this one, if you wanted to see through output, right, through diagram, right? So you can click into this instance ID, right? So once you click into this instance ID, right, what will happen, right? It will come inside that one. So it will show the flow also, and it will show the diagram also, right? So in your integration, it will show that okay, how the flow it is happening. And when you click into any step, right, it will highlight, right, okay, which step it is happening, right? So reply, right, it will go and show that all those information that okay, what it is happening, right? Right. So this is what we have, right? Now you can go and suppose if something error will out, right? So from the diagram only, right, you can go and see that okay, at this step, right, the error is happened, right? So if you see it, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you see, right, this is our starting point, right? So if you So message is started. So you can go and see here, right, what all things happen. Then in the data mapping, right, we have hard coded that message, right? So you can go and see see in this message, right? So if you see, right, message, right? So this is the message, right? So we have in the message field, right, we have hard coded this with the as a hello world, right? So that is what it is happening, right? Now if you see, right, in the top, if you see, right, so we have defined the business identifier, right, as a method, right? So that is the this is the business identifier. Now this is the one way of monitoring, right? So suppose if you run from here, right? Now if you see, right, that instance is gone, right? If you wanted to track it out, right, again, so what you do, right, you can click into this track instances. So it will take you to the monitoring page. So either you can go through this one monitoring page and you can come to the integrations, right? So this is a one way, or one way is like you can directly click into this one. So once you click into this one, right, what will happen, right? If you see, it is coming back to the instance page only, right? And if you see right here, this is what we have, right? It was completed. This was the instance ID, right? Instance ID we have completed 4 minutes ago. It was successful, and how much time it has taken, right? So that information it will show, and primary identifier it. So one was the primary identifier. So it will go and show that one, right? Okay, that okay. The method name is the get. If you have defined the secondary and two more parameter, right? So those would have come here, right? And in this one, right? If you click into this one, right? What will happen, right? It will go and show you the code, right? What was the actual code in the read only? It will open, and if you click into the first one, right? So same thing it will open, but this time, right? With the status it will open, with the flow it will open, right? So that is how that whole end-to-end process it will be there, right? You create code, you test the code, you monitor the code, right? So all those things, right? And this is how you can go and do that one. So with this one, right, we have completed our first simple integration, hello world, with the explanation that okay, what all things are there, right? How we can go and do that simple thing, right? How we can go and understand that one. So if anyone has any questions, we can go and take those questions. Else we will wrap up the today's session here only. So any questions if anyone has? In the testing, monitoring, or in the creation, any questions if you have, we can go and take those questions.
So when you created a trigger, right, in the first part, so you didn't send any message, right? It's just a initiation, right?
No, can you
It's
repeat your
just
question? When we
sorry.
no, can you repeat your question? When we
No, so you created a trigger, right? The trigger point, right?
correct,
So that's just a to initiate a integration, right?
correct.
So you're not sending that hello world message. You just want to initiate it, but
Yeah. So
the
when we wanted
mapping
to
you just
send,
hard coded.
yeah. So
Mhm.
when we wanted to send somewhere, right? That time we need to use the
Mhm.
invoke connection, right? Because in the invoke
Okay.
connection, if you see the in the trigger connection, right? We are not putting any information with which system we will communicate, right? So trigger connection, as we see, right? This is used to initiate the integration, right? It means to start that only, right? But if you
Okay.
wanted to communicate with some other point, right? Some other system, right? So that time we need to define the invoke connection, because in the invoke, right, we will define, right, that okay, with which system we will communicate, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So that is what we have. So trigger is only for the start point, and we need to define at least a start. If you define the, if you use the invoke connection in your code or not, that is completely up to you. If you see, right, the integration which we just created, right, in this one, right, I have defined the trigger connection, but did I use any invoke connection? No, right? That is not mandatory kind of thing, right? But this trigger is a mandatory, because without this one, right, I cannot start, right? So that is what we
Yeah.
have, like that. Okay, trigger importance.
Okay.
Any other questions if we have?
So how many days this instance will persist? Like if you like 1 month, or is there any setting for that?
You are talking about that monitoring?
Yeah, monitoring. Say
Yeah,
I
so
want.
so that will depend upon that configuration. So here, right, like if you have the admin access, right? So here the setting option will come. In that one, right, you can make 8 days, 32 days. So in that drop down, right, the numbers will come. So
Okay.
admin can go and put that, okay, the logging thing, right? How much time they need the log messages.
Okay. And after that, will it be archived to some other bucket somewhere, or
No,
it will take some?
automatically it will not, yeah, automatically it will not archive. Like if you, maybe if you wanted to archive, right? So you can write some logic, like some more integrations, and you can go and put those somewhere else. But automatically it will not archive anything.
Okay, okay. But there is no standard thing provided by Oracle, like directly to archive.
I have not looked at anything such. Maybe like I can look or if I will find out, maybe. But I have never seen anything such that, okay, archiving, because it's just a log messages, right?
Hmm.
So after some period of time, right, we don't need those log messages, right?
Yes, yeah, correct. But
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
case we
but in
want to.
case, yeah, maybe I will look into that one and let you know if we have anything such. Because I never got any such requirement from any client that, okay, we need to archive the logs. Because in that case, right, what will happen? It keeps increasing that amount, right?
Yes,
Today it
correct.
is okay, one file, two file, right? But maybe
Hmm.
after 3 years, 4 years, right? It is
Yes,
going to be huge, and where you will archive, right? Maybe you use FTP or you will use some object storage, right?
correct.
Then the costing will come for that also. So that is like unwanted space you are using, but you have to give the costing for that also.
Yeah, understood.
So
But
normally
if
from
there
the
is a,
business perspective, right? No one will use, but yes, I will give you, I will look into that one if you have any standard archiving process. So one is like you can write your own integration. You can archive with the help of that one. But like a standard one, I will see like if we have any standard option.
yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions if you have? Okay, so if no question, then I think we can wrap up the session today here only. And let me know if all of you are available tomorrow, so we can plan the class for tomorrow if all of you are available. Else we will have the class on Monday.
Same time.
Okay. Yeah, same time mode, like if you need after 1 hour, right? We can do 8 to 9, right? We can start at this time also.
Okay.
Okay, just let me know who is not available. So in that case, we can check.
Yeah, I am available. Maybe the rest of the time can confirm.
Okay. What about you, Jay?
I am also available.
I am
Okay.
also
What
available.
about you? Okay. What about Rashi?
So I'm also available.
Okay. Okay. Then like I will put into the group. So maybe either we'll connect at 7 a.m. or we will connect at 8 a.m. So I will put the timing into the group. Based on that one, right? We will connect tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you.